My name is Christian Devine, and I cannot, yet I must, retro-view Robot Monster. Robot Monster in 3D. Robot Monster in 3D. Robot Monster in 3D.
With the swiftness of a deadly cosmic ray, the Earth is invaded by indestructible moon monsters. Their ghastly mission, death for all humans.
Fool humans, there is no escape.
Robot Monster is an infamous 1953 science fiction film that, until Plan 9 from Outer Space kind of replaced it in the annals, in the halls of worst movie of all time. Certainly Robot Monster for many years was considered one of the worst movies ever made, and certainly one of the worst science fiction films ever made. It played all over TV as a kid, and its iconic gorilla-suited diving helmet, Monster, or Ro-Man, as he's called in the movie, is an iconic 50s science fiction image, no matter what the status of the film. And over the past few years, it has been restored to its 3D glory by the 3D Film Archive, and the 3D Film Archive has just been on fire, releasing a lot of films that have not been made available in 3D since their release, and in beautiful versions. Robot Monster was part of a Kickstarter that I contributed to, and despite the fact that this is, thank God this is in 3D. It is one of the worst movies ever made, and the 63, you feel every minute of the 63 minutes, and it even has an intermission, which is incredible, because it's a 63-minute movie that feels like a 2-hour movie, so it's a good thing they have an intermission. It's still a lot of fun. Even in 3D, it's almost unbearable. But it is awesome in 3D.
Yes.
And the 3D is absolutely remarkable. It looks beautiful. It's kind of amazing to see a film that you just kind of grown up seeing on a staticky TV or seeing pictures of, and then having it look so beautifully restored in 3D. And that's part of kind of this, golden age of physical media that we've got going on, along with all the influx of streaming, is that we still have access to this wonderful Ro-Man. I do want to platform this disc because they spent a lot of time and love on it, and there's over 2 hours of extra material. I haven't even started going through it, including some 3D shorts, some 3D this or that, and a clip of Bela Lugosi on a TV show on 60mm restored, and what looks to be a really fun clip with the memorabilia expert Bob Burns, who owns the actual Ro-Man helmet, going to Bronson Canyon, the famed Bronson Canyon, to revisit the cave with the bubble machine. What do you say about this film? It's fascinating because it's truly inept in multiple ways, but the fact that they have the imagination to film it in 3D and then not take advantage of the process whatsoever, almost in almost any given sense. If you don't have the budget for anything, but you're going to shoot in 3D, the least you can do is throw shit at the camera non-stop. And because frankly, I love 3D. I love it as a medium, and when people say, "Oh, this 3D is just throwing things at the screen," I'm always like, "Yeah, it's 3D. Throw more things at the screen. That's what I want, and that's the whole point of it." That's why my personal favorite 3D movie is right behind me. Yes, Friday the 13th, Part 3D, which I saw opening night in one of the great theatrical experiences of my life. And it's not a good movie, and I would never even watch it in 2D, but in 3D it's a blast. And I've seen it since in other theaters, and it always plays really fantastic with the crowd. And that's why the new crop of 3D films that have come out over the past decades, to me, don't really work as 3D, because they're just, eventually you kind of just get used to the idea that you're watching it in 3D, and there's nothing really leaping out at you, or there's no particular reason why it should be in 3D. I think Cameron's Avatar has a reason to be in 3D because he knows what the medium is, he knows what to do with it. But all the Marvel movies, most of them don't need to be seen in 3D. I think Doctor Strange works really well in 3D because it's a trip movie, so there's no reason to, so the 3D really accents it and helps out. But in general, unless there's a reason, like I said, if you're going to make a cheap monster movie or science fiction monster movie with a gorilla suit and a guy in a diving helmet on in 3D, throw shit at the screen or frame something. So there's some foreground, background action. It's a strange film. I'm always fascinated about what are you thinking when you're making this? What was the director, Phil Tucker, thinking as he was making this? Now, what this film does have in terms of legacy or royalty, Hollywood royalty, who actually worked on it, is the composer, Elmer Bernstein. Yes, that Elmer Bernstein, one of the most famous composers in movie history. And the score is very obtrusive and very noticeable, and actually probably carries the action way more than Roman walking up and down a hill in his ill-fitting gorilla suit. So this has been my retro view of Robot Monster in 3D from the 3D Film Archive. I was part of the Kickstarter campaign, so I got this baby early. You're going to have to wait. I think it comes out in general release anytime this month or next month, so I highly recommend you pick it up. They put a lot of love and care into this, and we want them to be rewarded for their time and effort. And obviously they got their Kickstarter going, and so they did pay for this, and hopefully more people will support these 3D releases, because there's not that many ways we can see these films anymore. And in fact, most TVs coming out are not in 3D, and in some ways, to the makers of TVs, that's a dead medium, despite the fact that films like Avatar and other films still come out in 3D. So it's definitely worth supporting, and it's a fantastic addition to my 3D shelf. I would like to say more about Robot Monster. I cannot,